welcome back, ballers. It's your boy MJ coming at you with another wonderful episode of the Fantasy Football Fumble. I'm here with my co-host, Joe the Birdman. Joe, how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing pretty well. Another strange week of football, a lot of unexpected events, and I think this is about the time when you really start to settle in and know if your team needs to make some big changes or you can sit tight. And I'm like 50-50 across the board. There's some major changes that need to happen in a few leagues, and the other leagues I'm just kind of coasting, but there's still a ton of time left. We still have 10 weeks left until the playoffs. So don't give up. Even if you're 0-5, don't give up.
Yeah, and if you guys at least follow our segments, we're going to get into that a little bit later today. But we definitely have some good ideas on how you could kind of, if you need to sell off some pieces that may have been drafted high and not pay dividends. For example, there's players out there that haven't lived up to their stock. This is the time to either, take a look at their future schedule and see if they're going to move, make sense to stick with them or to move forward. But regardless, before we get into all that, we'll get into our news and notes after a word from our sponsors.
Hey there, my name is Manny James Gonzalez with PRB, and I'm a real estate agent here in Central Florida. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran, military relocation pro, and big supporter of 2A and veterans' rights. My specialty is VA transactions. I'm also experienced in all parts of real estate.
I've been living in Florida for over 20 years, and I can tell you we still believe in freedom down here. One of the greatest job markets, excellent economy, and no state income tax. When it comes to an agent, you want one that's going to be honest, not afraid of a fight, and most importantly, willing to do the things that some agents aren't willing to do.
And what's that, Manny?
Shoot straight, Dan. If you're ever considering buying in Central Florida, you need somebody you can trust, and I got your six. I'm Manny James Gonzalez, find land for the free and home for the brave.
Welcome back, ballers. Let's get into some news and notes. So I just heard this today, a few hours before we started recording. Joe Flacco was traded to the Cincinnati Bengals, which, me personally, I love it. I think that's a huge step in the right direction. I was hopeful for Browning, but it didn't pan out, so I like the change. Amari Hampton joins Najee Harris on IR, unfortunately, so he'll be out for the next 4 weeks. And Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray injured his foot during week 5, but doesn't seem to be anything serious, although right now his status for week 6 is still uncertain. And keep an eye on all the 49ers, Purdy and Pearsall and Jennings. They were all out last week, and it's possible that they missed this week. Pearsall is trending in the right direction. So is Jennings, but, we heard that last week too. So, and the Commanders are optimistic about Terry McLaurin having a chance to play in Monday night against the Bears, but there's a chance he could be limited. Other than that, not really too much else to report. And I got to say, given the first few weeks, not too many injuries. So that's always nice.
One notable guy I was just thinking about. So some running backs to look at. Joe Mixon is going to be eligible to return from IR sometime in the next 2 to 4 weeks. They're saying 3 to 4, but they're always, trying to throw a curveball out there. Another guy, Bucky Irvin, might actually miss next week as well. He's apparently dealing with a nagging injury, and more about that later, of course.
Yeah, that's a good point though. Is you want to keep an eye on Bucky. Hopefully you handcuffed him with Rachaad White, who had a great game last week. But, yeah, his status is still up in the air too. So we'll have to keep an eye on all these guys. Nothing, they're even talking about Saquon Barkley being a little banged up, but he had a limited practice this week. So he's probably just resting since they play on Thursday. But you just got to be extra careful because, especially with these 9:30 games, we saw it happen with Jaylen Warren. Everyone thought he was playing. They forgot that's an early game. And then all of a sudden you're getting a 0 in your starting lineup because you didn't make adjustments. So you got to keep an eye on all these guys, including Jaylen Warren, actually, because there's a chance that he'll be limited or miss again this week.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Now let's get into some trade targets for week 6.
All right, so I want to lead this off, right, because I just started talking about them for a second. But Bucky Irving, right, he's somebody that's limited right now, may miss next week. I think he's a perfect trade target right now because he's somebody that has a high ceiling, a really stable floor. If you look at that Tampa Bay offense, they're pass heavy, but because they're shorthanded, basically they've been doing a lot of wide receiver screens and like design run plays and all this stuff, kind of getting shifty. Because and they're making sure that the running backs touch the ball, i.e. example of Rashad White, you just said his name a couple minutes ago. He had a 2-touchdown game, and he's nowhere near the caliber of running back that Bucky Irving is. So I expect him when he comes back to ball out. I mean, he's only had 71 carries over the first 4 games, right? So that's not a lot, or that's not ideal on what you're looking for, right? You want to give him at least 20 touches a game. But, I mean, the last game alone, he had 7 receptions, over 100 yards and receiving yards for that game specifically. Like, he's somebody I would definitely get now, maybe take a loss or 2 in the next week or so. But then once he comes back, if you look at the back half of the Buccaneers schedule, weeks 14, 15, 16, 17 typically should be your playoff weeks if you're running 8, certain most leagues. So 14 is New Orleans Saints. Week 15 is Atlanta Falcons. Week 16 is the Carolina Panthers. And week 17 is the Miami Dolphins. If you're going to get anybody, make a play for anybody on the damn Buccaneers team. Because Baker, Bucky Irvin, right? Like, maybe you could buy low on Mike Evans, right? I would stay away from Godwin. But there's nobody that's going to sell Emeka Egbuka for anything less than your firstborn, man, because that guy's top 5 right now, wide receivers.
Yeah, I think he's number 3 overall. He was number 1 last week. Dude's been amazing. I mean, I expect him to have a good season, but nothing like this. My goodness. Wow, that's a good schedule for the playoffs, and I totally agree. And if you think about last year, Bucky didn't get started until midseason last year. So right now he's looking unbelievable. If he has to rest for a couple weeks and, you're 3-2 or 4-1, make that trade for sure. And a guy I want to talk about, if you're looking to improve your quarterback situation, I think you should make a move for Jaden Daniels. It's been kind of a rough start for him. He missed a couple games, and Terry McLaurin has 2. He's averaging 19 points a game, which is fine. But like when you're drafting him, you're expecting 25, 30, So there's plenty of time left in the season. He's an unbelievable player. If you can package someone like Justin Fields and a flex player, you might be able to get him on your team. Take advantage of the emotions of someone that's, maybe started him and is a little disappointed or, had to take a couple losses because they couldn't start him. I have him in, I think, 3 leagues, and I'm a little disappointed, but I know that he's going to bounce back. And especially when Terry McLaurin's healthy and they're at full capacity, he's going to have an unbelievable season. So I would try to make a trade for Jaden Daniels if you're in need of a quarterback and you've got some pieces to play with.
Oh yeah, I definitely get that. And I'm one of those guys, man. The first 4 weeks, like you were saying, you're kind of developing your team, figuring out who's going to stay, looking at that upcoming, second half of the season. But Jaden Daniels is somebody that hasn't even got a chance to like get warmed up yet. So once he gets on fire, brother, he's going to be a top 5 QB all year long. Because right now, like the top 10 wide receivers include Sam Darnold, Matt Stafford. As far as fantasy points are concerned, we're talking about guys like that. So I think obviously it comes in streaks. So these guys are hot now and they eventually fizzle out. So I'd rather have these guys that are going to be hot the second half of the season. You can on them.
And once he's got, you got to remember McLaurin got a late start due to the contract. And so now, that's always gets you a little worried about injuries. We saw what happened to Ayuk last year. And we've seen it before, but McLaurin's going to come back healthy. Debo's been unbelievable. He's just got a lot going on where he can easily bounce back and be a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah, I can see that easily. I don't have a trade target, but I got to sell high. So it's like a target like, hey, use this as a trade asset. So Michael Carter, Arizona Cardinals, he's somebody that just got the workload last game kind of by default. You know what I mean? Like he was the hot hand. He had 18 carries for 51 yards. That's terrible, right? He's averaging like 2 yards a carry. He had 1 touchdown, and then he had 5 receptions for 22 yards. So if you're talking about anybody that's going to be all-time high value, this guy, week one, he's a 1 week wonder. Maybe he might have another good week or two. But I would be look for somebody that is desperate at that position and trade him off. For example, in our league, someone traded him off for Tony Pollard, right? So
Yeah,
not a bad trade whatsoever, but he capitalized on that trade value altogether,
Yeah, I had a couple people try to trade him to me, and they probably have the same thought process as you. This is a short-term thing. I need to plan for the long term. And you can get, some people that are in a situation where they're 1-4, 0-5, and they're like, I got to have a win. So, yeah, I'm going to make that trade because my running back's on a bye this week. And that brings me to my next guy that I think you should make a trade for because he's on a bye this week is Jordan Addison. He wasn't nearly as impressive in week 5, even though the points were basically the same, 15 fantasy points. He wasn't nearly as impressive in week 5 as he was in week 4. He was bailed out by a touchdown in the fourth quarter. That was really close. He really didn't have a good stat line until the last 3 minutes of the game. So the person who has Addison is probably aware of that. They were probably watching that game frustrated. It was the only game on in the morning, so you're probably watching it. Mm-hmm. And I was watching it frustrated because I started Addison in like 3 leagues. And then at the end, he got bailed out. But still, he's a great player. And he's going to continue to be very involved in the Minnesota offense. He just came back. He's only 2 games into the season. So if you need to fill a wide receiver slot, if someone needs to fill a wide receiver slot because he's on a bye this week, if they're in need of like, hey, let's do a 2-for-1 and I'll give you Addison and you can afford to put him on your bench, I think it's a great time. Like to target people that are in need of a player and they have a losing record, I think it's, best to do on a solid player's bye week. And that's why I was talking about Pitts last week, and that's why I'm talking about Addison this week. I think when these guys are on a bye and you find a team that's really in need of a win, that's when you can take advantage of the situation. And I think Addison's going to be great the rest of the season, whether it's McCarthy or Carson Wentz at quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. That's definitely a good observation, man. If you were watching that game, which 90% of America was watching that game, right?
It's the only thing on.
It was actually a decent one too.
Yeah.
You probably were on that roller coaster emotionally, like, damn, I just got bailed out, like you said, in the fourth quarter by this touchdown. I'm not gonna, bet on this again, right? So they end up selling high on him. But much like yourself, I do think he's definitely going to be a high value asset. It's not going to be Jalen Naylor getting a bunch of those passes. Like it's just Jalen Naylor happened to be there all camp, So
yeah,
you're right. He will get integrated, and he's going to be easily a wide receiver 2/3. So at least 15, 17 points a game as a floor.
Yeah, and he was great last year. Like I said, he's just getting warmed up. He's going to be awesome. Target those in need. Take advantage of those emotions.
Now let's get into our hot call of the week. Well, it's a little caliente in here, ladies and gentlemen. Mm-hmm. We got the hot call. This is going to be America's game of the week, right? We call it the game of the week because we know more than half those a-holes that have shows. No, I'm just kidding. No disrespect to anybody but Nick Wright and Max Kellerman, right? Is he even still on the air, Max Kellerman? He's gonna come at me, bro.
So.
Let's do a celebrity boxing match. All right, come on, Max Kellerman. Talk that cash, boy. Anyways, for my hot call of the week, I ended up going with the Lions versus the Chiefs. Man, that's going to be a fun game. Lions are clicking on all cylinders. The Chiefs look like the Chiefs of 2 or 3 years ago, right? Where they were just, outscoring you, right? They lost to Jacksonville. Granted, Jacksonville played an excellent game, but that's one of the more busy, games we've seen from the Kansas City Chiefs in the last couple of years, right? They start kind of shifting towards take what the defense gives you. And that game kind of looked like, yes, that's what they played. However, they were looking to score some points. Now, although I don't have anybody specifically I love on the Chiefs side, I'm one of those sell high on Travis Kelce, sell high on, Xavier Worthy, because you're not going to get that consistency all the time. But on the opposite the line side, you're going to start everybody you have on there. I know Chiefs are a good defense and all that, but I think that when it comes to like these kinds of matchups, those juggernauts just kind of trade blows. And Detroit's, I'd say, easily a top 3 offense in the league. So I expect them to light up some fireworks. Can we predict who's going to be who on, both sides? No, just go with your gut and start whoever you think has the best matchup.
That's what I was going to say. Is it's difficult to think about who to start on both of those teams. I mean, there's the automatics, of course. You're playing Gibbs and you're playing Amon-Ra St. Brown. But like
Montgomery.
Of course. Yeah, I'd play Montgomery too. Absolutely. And the thing is, though, it's like, Jameson Williams, I was really high on him going into this season. I actually played him over Devonta Smith in one league last week, and it cost me the game. And it was a last-minute thing. I just looked at the matchups, and I was like, oh, man, Jameson Williams playing Cincy. Devonta Smith's playing the Broncos. And I put Jameson Williams in there, and that was obviously a mistake. It cost me. And that's what's a little worrying about the Lions is, you don't know if Laporta is going to have 20 points or 4 or 6. It's a little stressful sometimes, but you're still going to start Laporta. And I'd put Jameson on the bench, but all the other guys, I'd play him. And then with the Chiefs, that's another one. You don't know who to really play. I mean, Travis Kelce, yes, you're going to start him. He had a good game last week, finally. That was a nice little rebound. And Mahomes has looked awesome. So you're going to play Mahomes and you're going to play Travis Kelce. And, at receiver, luckily you're going to have Rashee Rice back soon. But I'd play Xavier Worthy, and I'd be pretty confident in him. But outside of that, I'm obviously not starting either running back. Yeah, Kareem Hunt had a couple touchdowns, but he had like 10 yards. No, that's like if you need him in a double flex league, that might not be a bad play. But like you're holding your breath for 10 points.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just hard with the Chiefs and the Lions. It's hard to know who's going to go off, but I do see that being a high-scoring game. Despite them both having a legit defense, I think that's going to be a battle. But yeah, who to play outside of the automatic roster starts is difficult.
And I think more like plug in for the bye week, right? There's a lot of people dealing with bye weeks.
Yeah.
Now we're going to be seeing this for the next 4 or 5 weeks, right? Luckily the NFL kind of compressed it down so the bye weeks aren't as far out. So I think it's like weeks 5 through 12 or something like that, or 11. But definitely there's a lot of people facing some question marks this week for starters. So if you can plug them off the free agency wire and just plug them in for a game, I think it's worth it. Yeah,
like Thornton is in a bad start. He's had the last 3 out of 4 weeks have been pretty legit for him. So, if you need a plug and play, he's not a bad option.
Or Hollywood.
You never know. That's what I'm saying. There you go. There's 3 more examples for it's difficult to say who's going to go off. Now, for my hot matchup, I've got the Bears versus the Commanders. The Bears were a little banged up going into their bye week, but they're back to full health, and the offense is looking good. The same applies for the Commanders. They've had a few injuries along the way, but the offense has been really strong, and the defense is kind of struggling for both teams. So that's always promising from a fantasy perspective. And for the Bears, I'm starting Caleb Williams, DeAndre Swift, and Rome Odunze. I'm a little nervous about DJ Moore unless it's like a double flex and you don't have a better option. But yeah, Caleb Williams has been awesome. DeAndre Swift has been at least, a solid enough floor, and Rome Odunze has been awesome too. So if you do need a spot start at tight end, just because I believe this is going to be a high scoring game, this is a very risky play. But if you need a spot start and you're desperate, you could plug in Cole Kmet, who had 9 targets last game, but he only had 3 catches. And that's a very risky move. But I'm just saying, if you're real desperate, you can reach. And then for the Commanders, I'm going to start Jaden Daniels, Krosky, Merritt, and Debo, of course. I'm a little hesitant to start Terry McLaurin because he could be limited. You got to keep an eye on that as the week plays out. If he's limited in practice all week, he might not be able to make those, sprints downfield just yet. You might want to hold off. But if you drafted him, you're probably going to start him. And hopefully you have a better option than Zach Ertz at tight end, but I have him in like 5 leagues. And he finished with 0 points last week. I mean, the first couple weeks were great, but the last 3 weeks have been bad. He had 6 points, then 0. So let's see if he can bounce back with like 10 to 12 points in a high scoring game this week. But hopefully you have better option at tight end. But unfortunately for me, I'm going to be playing Ertz in a few leagues.
You know what? You either get 0 or you get 10 points. That's the way of the tight end, right?
It's the truth, man. Now let's get into our cold calls. For my cold call, I got the Browns versus the Steelers. Yeah, the Steelers, again, it's a divisional matchup from 2 of the best defensive units in the NFL. And the Steelers have been suspect, but they've got flashes of greatness. And I still think they're one of the best defenses in the league. And we know that the Browns are. So any kind of divisional matchup in the AFC is going to be a hard-pressed game. And the Steelers are rested after the bye week, and they're playing at home. So this is going to be a really fun game for me to watch. And it's probably not going to be great for fantasy, but it will be an entertaining defensive battle. And for the Steelers, there's only one person I'm starting, and that's DK Metcalf. Everyone else, including Jaylen Warren, I'm worried for this game because Jaylen Warren could be limited, and the Cleveland is just so mean against the run. And for the Browns, I'm starting Quinshon Judkins, and that's it. There's no one else you can even really think about except for, maybe Njoku if you're desperate at tight end. But honestly, I think that's it. It's DK Metcalf for the Steelers and Judkins for the Browns. And with a lot of players on buys again, you might not have better options than Jaylen Warren, but I just wouldn't expect a big game from him. You're going to hope for 12 points because you're talking about the number 1 defense against the run. And on top of that, he's coming back from an injury. So just pump the brakes all around. Even with DK, he had a great game last time he was on the field, and he is coming from a bye, so he'll be ready to go. But this is a tough game for both teams.
That fall off for Jerry Jeudy needs to be studied, man, because he was actually getting drafted in the same area. He was right on top. He was getting drafted right before Rome Odunze and all these mock drafts and every other draft I've ever seen, right? Because people were pretty much had all those guys the same. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Rome Odunze, not in that particular order, but that was kind of the category that they were in. Xavier Worthy, like wide receiver 2s. And obviously he's somebody that's a wasted pick, but just Cleveland in general, you're right, man. It's a crapshoot. Dylan Gabriel's probably going to start again. Maybe we'll get some Shedeur Sanders. Who knows? But Steelers side, you're right. I am so happy that the only share of Steelers football I have is literally DK Metcalf, and that's
same.
it.
Yeah. And dude, like what you're saying about Jeudy is I gotta say I was not high on him at all. I didn't draft him in any leagues, and it was because he's on the Browns. And it's funny. I'm excited about Flacco going to Cincy. I think that's going to be awesome. Like, yeah, he's gonna make things happen. But I did think that about Cleveland too. I thought that Flacco was the right guy. I mean, I don't know what the situation is in Cleveland, but it's real bad. Aside from Quinshon Judkins, there's no one on that offense that you can get excited about. And that team as a whole is just in disarray, but the defense is rock solid. So, yeah, it's funny with Flacco. Like, he's a stud, and I like him as a fantasy quarterback specifically, but I thought he could make something happen in Cleveland, even though I was, down on Jerry Jeudy. I thought that offense could do all right with him. And I'm really hoping he can turn it around in Cincy, because I've got a lot of stock in Chase Brown and also Jamar Chase. So I'd like to see some more boom games than garbage time.
Mm-hmm. Now for my cold call, it's not hard to see which game stinks for the week. So my mind automatically like scrolls and then locks in. So this week's shitty game, I mean cold call or cold game of the week, it's gonna be Titans versus Raiders, man. 2 1-4 teams going at it. See who has a smaller penis. I'm
I
just
had a
kidding,
feeling you were
guys.
going to say that game, man. I was looking at that game too.
And man, no offense to anybody on either one of those teams, but they're both struggling, man. I don't want any shares of any players on either side. Well, maybe with the exception of Genty, right? Like he's the only guy that's consistent, and it took him a while to get on too. I think it was about 2 or 3 games before he finally popped off. And on the other side, the Titans side, Tony Pollard finally had a decent game. Cam Ward finally had an all right game. So did Calvin Ridley. I just can't trust that consistency.
No way. No chance.
They're in a tough division now because Colts have a really stout defense. I just don't see it going their way, right? So that's someone that a game I want to stay far away from. And I am so happy that I did not tell any of you to draft any of their players, with maybe the exception of Ridley. That I'll be honest with. I liked Ridley. He's probably my shit call of the year.
Well, a lot of people are real high on Ridley. He's the last couple seasons, though, has been peaks and valleys for him. You never know what you're going to get. He's boom bust. And, dude, I'm sorry, but with those offenses, exactly what you said, like that's why I was not as high on Ashton Genty. And he has looked really good recently. And he actually looked good, like, from the start, but just not what we wanted. It took him a while to have a boom week, and we did see it, but that consistency concerns me a lot. And I don't know if Brock Bowers is going to play this week either, but I think he's banged up, and he hasn't been playing at the level you drafted him, not even close. So there's a lot of hesitation, and these boom bust players, they're the last guys I want on my team. Even when they do have those big weeks, then they hit. There's so much stress in between that I'd rather just have the consistent 15 points than someone that's going to get you 7 or 8 one week and 25 the next.
And you know what? This is the same discussion we keep having, right? We keep telling people stop overvaluing tight ends. We're number 1 and 2 right now. Trey McBride and Brock Bowers were both being drafted in the 2nd and 3rd round. That means those guys, to be drafted in the 2nd and 3rd round, they have to produce at least like 20 points or more per game for it to be a successful draft pick for your fantasy season. Now, if you ended up waiting, like I told you guys, and pushing it to weeks 9 or rounds 9 through 12, you were able to get at least 1 or 2 of the top 5 fantasy tight ends here right now. Freaking Jake Ferguson is tight end 1, right? And then Dalton Kincaid is tight end 2. And those guys are being drafted late, And then it goes to show you should never get a tight end before a certain round because you're never going to get – right now, these guys are killing it, and they're averaging 10 to 12 points a game, And then you have somebody like Trey McBride and Brock Bowers will get a 30-point game and then a single-digit game, and then you're like, you call it peaks and valleys, feast of famine, whatever you want to call it. It all means the same thing. It means that you're overvaluing a position. So if you have one of those guys, somebody in your league is weird and likes tight ends that much, trade it to them. Get yourself maximum return. Same thing goes for quarterbacks. You can replace them like this, so sell them off high while you can. Now, without further ado, let's get into our shit calls of the week.
I thought Derrick Henry was going to come back in week 5 and remind everyone why he's a top 5 running back. But I really don't know what to say about him. I don't, because, the Texans have a solid run defense, and Lamar was out last week. But that was another really bad game. And, we've discussed that his matchups were difficult the first month of the season. You had Green Bay, you had Detroit, you had Cleveland, but we thought that he was matchup proof when we drafted him. And I told all of you to run out and make a trade for him. Honestly, for the rest of the season, I'd like to say I'm confident that he's going to bounce back, but He's probably not the same guy that we had last year. Unless he turns things around big time, you're probably just going to have to hope for 15 and like pray for 20. And I hate to say that because, he seemed like a guy that even if he didn't get a touchdown, he's going to get you 150 yards. I don't know if that's going to happen anymore. He might be a touchdown dependent running back, and that sucks because I was so high on him going into the season. And I was trying to trade for him in a lot of leagues last week, and I couldn't get him. So I think a lot of people are just as conflicted as I am, where they see what he can do. But let's look at what he did last week. 15 carries for 33 yards. If he didn't get a touchdown, he would have finished with 3 fantasy points. And next week, it's going to be another tough matchup. He's playing the Rams. And then the Ravens are on a bye in week 7. So maybe don't trade for him because I don't know what to expect over the next 2 or 3 weeks.
I don't think that it's hit the jack button immediately, right? Like it escape from him. I think now, if anything, you could buy even lower on him, right? But you're not giving up one of your top, one of your top 3 guys to get him. You're gonna combine a couple pieces that whoever that opponent is, whatever they need, you're gonna package that up to them, right? If that's a quarterback, tight end package, whatever that they are missing out on. You want to make sure you put that in a running back on the return so that you can get him, right? Or if you can pay cheaper for him, then do so. But, although everybody expected him to have a good game, but that's what happens in the NFL, man. They're going to game plan for him, and then they're going to think he's shut down, and all of a sudden Henry's going to gallop for a couple touchdowns that game. So
that's true. And it could have been that the defense just knew they had to focus on Derrick Henry and not worry about Lamar. So maybe when Lamar's back in the mix, things will change. But I have to say, it's possible they just rest Lamar and then they're on a bye in week 7. I don't know. I mean, they need to win too. So
yeah, they can't get too far behind in the AFC, man.
I don't know what. That's the thing, man. I just don't know what to expect with the Ravens. I did not expect their start to go like this, and I don't think anybody did. People were talking about them being in the Super Bowl and being the champions. So we'll see.
Looking like Bills Lions now.
Yeah, it's not looking great for the Ravens.
Oh, well, not even the Bills anymore, right? So the Bills just got knocked off.
Dude, the Chiefs are 2-3. It's been a strange season, man.
I tell you anybody's game in the AFC right now. It's wide open.
Oh yeah.
NFC is my Birds and the Lions.
Hey man, I gotta say the Steelers look pretty good too, but I don't get
that's AFC.
I know. I'm just saying my Steelers look good too, but I don't get too excited because they always do this. They were like 10-4 last year, and I was so pumped up, and then they decided to shit the bed just like they always do.
First round.
It's what they do. They make it to the playoffs and then they lose.
Sound like the Cowgirls, man.
It's similar, yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Don't disrespect them.
Backhanded compliment. It's that time again, guys. I'm sorry that the show's over. We appreciate you guys. Again, we keep the show running because of y'all going this year number 3. Of course, we appreciate all the love, support. Keep sharing, liking, downloading, guys. We do see everything. We do appreciate everything. Joe?
But yeah, no, we appreciate all the support. Just if you got any comments, put them on YouTube. That's the one we check the most. And like, comment, subscribe, all that good shit.
All right, guys. See you next week. Ballers, same time, same place. You know where to find us. You guys be safe and good luck this week with your matchups.